Okay, well, good morning, everybody. I think we're going to get started and kick things off. I just want to welcome everyone to our February 17th, 2021 Governor and Executive Council meeting. And before we start, just to remind anyone who is joining us in person to be sure to silence their cell phones if they could. We also have folks joining us over the phone today, both members of the public as well as some of the commissioners who may be asked to come up and speak on some of the items. And then, of course, we also have Councilor Wheeler, who is joining us remotely today. Councilor Wheeler, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Great. Well, I hope you're feeling a little better. I know it's been a tough week for you, but it's great to at least have you on the phone. And I also appreciate that you'll kind of stay with us as long as you can, but you might not be able to make it for the entire meeting. Just as a protocol, Councilor Wheeler, could you just begin by stating your name as well as where you're located and if anyone is with you?
Yes, Councilor Dave Wheeler. I'm in Manchester at Catholic Medical Center.
Great. Thank you, sir. To kick things off, Councilor Gatsis, do you want to kick us off with a reading of the pledge?
And the doctor hasn't grabbed that phone from you yet?
Yes.
These are prayers and reflections from David P. Jones, Chaplain of the Senate, 2005 to 2006. Isn't it interesting how worked up we get about money? Money matters a lot, especially in this place, where it represents options, choices, and degree of freedom for those who have it. But I invite you in the midst of that reality to remember that the words of a great second century African Christian, quote, "Nothing that is God's is obtainable by money." Seems to me that would include things like respect, compassion, love, wisdom, and courage. You were sent here to include those, and that to the bottom line. Lord of limitless abundance, let us spend down our lives in ways that do not deplete us or others, but rather that endow us with riches available only through you.
Thank you, Lord.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilor. So unfortunately, again, we don't have any performances or proclamations to read at this council meeting. Hopefully, sometime in the near future, we'll be able to get back to that. So I'll begin just by commencing this Governor and Executive Council meeting, and first ask for a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the February 3rd, 2021 meeting.
So moved.
Any discussion or recommendations or requests to change anything within the minutes? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of accepting the meeting minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. And with that, the meeting minutes are approved. Next, from the Office of the Secretary of State, we have our civil commissions. Could I please have a list to confirm the list of civil commissions?
So moved.
All in favor of accepting the list of civil commissions, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. With that, any opposed? And with that, the list of civil commissions is approved. Are there any nominations to place on the list of civil commissions? Councilor Kenny?
Thank you, Governor. I have three notary public. The first one is Ashley McKay of East Wakefield. The second one is Kirsten Bishop of Tilton, New Hampshire. And the last one is Mr. let me get it right here, Jeffrey Norman of Brockton, New Hampshire.
Okay. Anyone else to submit any additional names to the list of civil commissions? Okay, hearing none, the issue of civil commissions is concluded. Also, this morning we have one precept regarding a special election that the Executive Council is asked to address. A special election has been requested to be held to fill a vacancy in the representation. This is correct, right? Okay, just want to make sure I'm doing this the right way. A special election has been requested to be held to fill a vacancy in the representation of Merrimack County State Representative District Number 23, including the town of Dunbarton and Bow. The filing period is set for February 22nd, 2021 through February 26th, 2021. The primary election, I guess that will be next week, by the way. The primary election will take place on April 20th, 2021, with a special election being held on June 8th, 2021. If only one person from each political party files, then there will not be a primary election, and instead the special election itself, the special election as a general election will take place on April 20th, 2021. At this time, I ask for a motion to accept the precept for Merrimack County District 23, including the towns of Dunbarton and Bow.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions on this precept? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of accepting the motion and the precept, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, the precept is accepted to move forward. We have 3 resignations to discuss and accept today. From the Air Resources Council, could I please begin by having a motion to accept the resignation of David Collins of Bedford?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion on David Collins? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, the resignation of Mr. Collins is accepted. As the Attorney General for the Department of Justice, could I please have a motion to accept the resignation of Gordon McDonald of Deering?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, the resignation is accepted. That would be, and just to be clear, that will be effective on March 4th, so we don't have to kick you out of the room, sir. Please stay. As the manager of the Employee Relations for the Department of Administrative Services, can I please have a motion to accept the resignation of Elizabeth McCormick of Concord?
Second?
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, the resignation of Ms. McCormick is accepted. And that concludes the resignations for today. Moving on to our list of confirmations, we have quite a few today. Let's begin by please asking for a motion to confirm Jeffrey Seifert of Bedford to the Board of Accountancy.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Mr. Seifert? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, Mr. Seifert is confirmed. Thank you. Could I please have a motion to confirm Howard Ludington of Stratham to the Board of Dental Examiners?
Second?
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Voting of the recusal, Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Ludington is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Lisa Prosper from Concord to the Board of Licensed Dietitians?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ms. Prosper is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Raymond Hebert of Manchester to the Board of Medical Imaging and Radiation Therapy?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Any opposed? And Raymond Hebert is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm James Taylor of Center Harbor to the Board of Nursing?
So moved.
The motion is second. Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, Ms. Taylor is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Dick Anagnost of Bedford to the Business Finance Authority Board of Directors?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Any opposed? Dick Anagnost is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Matthew Benson of Concord to the Business Finance Authority Board of Directors?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, sir. Hearing none, Matthew Benson is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Nancy Merrill of Lebanon to the Business Finance Authority Board of Directors?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. With that, Nancy Merrill is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Frank Edelblut of Wilton as the Commissioner for the Department of Education?
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Thank you. Any discussion? Councilor Warmington?
I'm voting against Commissioner Edelblut and Chairman Drew Klein's re-nominations today because the New Hampshire Public School students and their families deserve better leadership in the State Department of Education. The thousands of children, parents, and teachers who have endlessly resilient in the face of this pandemic deserve leaders who are committed to supporting them, and local taxpayers who have seen their property taxes rise unsustainably cannot afford the enormous amount of downshifting Edelblut and Klein are spearheading. Over the past 4 years, Commissioner Edelblut and Chair Klein have used their position not to improve and invest in New Hampshire public schools, but to divert from them in favor of private alternatives. The cost of this privatization for our children and for our communities is immense. Promising freedom and choice efforts like the construction of dozens of charter schools and the introduction of public cash for private school voucher programs will divert hundreds of millions of dollars in public education funds from private schools and raise property taxes in our cities and towns. Most alarming is this session's massive school voucher program, HB 20. Commissioner Edelblut has championed this policy, and that would have property taxes pay tuition for children of wealthy families to attend well-endowed private schools. The enormous cost of this program would devastate our public schools and the children who attend them. Public education is a bedrock principle of our democracy. It is at the heart of the American dream. It is what allows any child from any background to thrive and build a better life for themselves and for future generations. These public education leadership positions are hugely important and carry important public responsibilities, and the people who serve them should be dedicated to making New Hampshire schools the best in the country.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Yes, Governor.
Yes, Councilor Wheeler.
Yes, Governor. I just wanted to quickly say that I think Frank Edelblut is the best thing that has happened to education in the state of New Hampshire in a long time. I remember back in the days when we couldn't even get the education commissioner to come show up at a council meeting and discuss issues with us. Educational opportunities are for all, not just one sex, but for all. And I think Frank Edelblut will make that happen. He's done a great job. He'll continue to do a great job.
Well, thank you very much, Councilor. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of Frank Edelblut, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
And any opposed?
Opposed.
Thank you, Councilor Wilmington. And with that, Frank Edelblut is confirmed. Can I please have a motion to confirm Deborah Butler of Concord to the Judicial Retirement Plan Board of Trustees?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Any opposed? And Deborah Butler is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Lawrence Blaney of Hooksett to the New Hampshire Motor Vehicle Industry Board?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And, Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, Lawrence Blaney is confirmed. Could I now please have a motion to confirm Robert Marazzo of Plainfield to the New Hampshire Motor Vehicle Industry Board?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Any opposed? And with that, Mr. Marazzo is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Sarah Hinckley of Dover to the Occupational Therapy Governing Board? Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Any opposed? And Sarah Hinckley is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Shane McKinney of Albany to the Oil Fund Disbursement Board?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. A second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Thank you. With that, Mr. McKinney is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Thomas Frawley of Lyme to the Oil Fund Disbursement Board?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, Thomas Frawley is confirmed. Can I please have a motion to confirm Sarah Stone of Alsted to the Respiratory Care Practitioners Governing Board?
So moved.
The motion and a second. Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Thank you. With that, Sarah Stone is confirmed. Again, now can I please have a motion to confirm Michelle Tremblay of Pennacook to the Rivers Management Advisory Committee?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Any opposed? Hearing no one opposed, Michelle Tremblay is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Andrew Klein of Bedford to the State Board of Education?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Councilor Warrington. With that, Andrew Klein is confirmed. Could I please have a motion to confirm Eric Steinhauser of Concord to the Waste Management Council?
So moved.
Motion and a second, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, Councilor Wheeler. Any opposed? Hearing no one opposed, Eric is confirmed. And finally, could I please have a motion to confirm Anthony Andre Belanger of Tilton to the Waste Management Council?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Hearing no one in opposition, Mr. Andre Belanger is confirmed. And that actually concludes the nominations for today's meeting. I have some nominations to read into the record today. To the Advisory Council on Unemployment Compensation, I nominate Kevin Sullivan of Hampton. To the Air Resources Council, I nominate David Collins of Bedford. Excellent. So, sorry, can you explain that?
Yes.
I didn't get it.
Dave Collins was filling the oil representation on the board, and we're moving him to the general public member due to a change of representation that he's doing.
That's why we accepted his resignation, and now we're nominating him
It's
into
still a different spot.
his affiliation. Good. Just want to clarify that. As the Assistant Commissioner for the Department of Safety, I nominate Eddie Edwards of Dover. To the Business Finance Authority Board of Directors, I nominate Jason Syverson of Dunbar. As a Justice of the Circuit Court, I nominate Patrick Ryan of Swansea and Ellen Joseph of Merrimack. As the Division Director of Learner Support for the Department of Education, I nominate Mackenzie Snow, currently living in Washington, D.C. To the Oil Fund Disbursement Board, I nominate Kevin Shepard of Manchester. To the State Board of Auctioneers, I nominate Justin Conway of Dover. And to the State Board of Education, I nominate Ann Lane of Durham. And that concludes the nominations for today's meeting. So moving on to our consent calendar. I'd ask for, begin at least by asking for a motion to adopt the consent calendar agenda. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion or request to remove items from the consent calendar? Hearing none, all in favor of adopting the consent calendar as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Any opposed? And with that, the consent calendar is approved.
The table items, which I think Council Wheeler has a couple of issues.
Sure, that's a great point. Councilor Wheeler, I know you're still hanging with us, and we appreciate that. We do have, bear with me here. We do have a couple of table items, and I know you were involved with a couple of those. So just to make sure that we're being cognizant of your time, I guess I would ask if there's an interest in removing table item 81 from the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department from the table.
No, not 81, I haven't got my answers yet, but we can remove 15 if you want.
Okay.
So remove 15.
Okay. So there's a motion to remove table item 15 from the Department of Transportation from the table. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Thank you. So with that, item 15 is removed from the table. Could I now have a motion to adopt formerly tabled item 15?
Move.
Second?
So there's a motion and a second. Any discussion on formerly tabled item 15?
I've got all my questions answered, Governor, on item 15. That was good to go.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of formally tabled item 15, please signify from the Department of Transportation, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? And with that, formally tabled item 15 has been approved. We'll keep item 81 on the table. The only other table item was from the Department of Environmental Services. Is there any interest in, want to move on that? Is there a motion to remove that from the table? Councilor Kenny?
There is, Governor.
There's a motion. Okay, is there a second? It's a motion and a second. All in favor of removing formally tabled item number 27 from the table from the Department of Environmental Services, please signify by saying aye. Councilor Kenny? Councilor Wheeler?
Yes, aye.
Thank you. Any opposed for removing it from the table? With that, item 27 is removed from the table. Could I now have a motion to adopt formally tabled item 27?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Councilor Kenny?
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank Commissioner Scott for providing comprehensive answers to all my lengthy questions on this particular funding source from the Aquatic Resource Mitigation Fund. That is to be a grant given to the Mahoosic Land Trust Incorporated to purchase land in Shelburne, New Hampshire. Obviously, when you purchase large swaths of land from a small municipality, you ask the question, who is going to be the steward, who is going to be the beneficiary, is it going to be used for recreational purposes, will it be taken off the tax roll, and ultimately what happens if the land trust dissolves, is responsible for the land in the future. So all these questions that I asked were thoughtfully answered. I spoke to the selectman, Stan Judge from Shelburne. I spoke to some conservation people locally, and that the community is in support of this. They did a formal vote at the Board of Selectmen. And so I feel very confident that no one's going to come after me weeks down the road saying I didn't do my due diligence. So I'm ready to move forward.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion on formerly tabled item 27? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of this item, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Any opposed? And that item is approved. So that concludes the table items. We'll keep item 81 officially on the table. And returning to our regular agenda, I begin by asking for a motion to adopt agenda item 6 from the Department of Health and Human Services to the Office of the Commissioner.
So moved.
Any discussion on item 6? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Any opposed? And with that, agenda item 6 is approved. Yes, ma'am.
Could we go back to 4C? I'm sorry, I forgot to raise this concern. We have Major Ryan Cunningham. Shouldn't that be acting?
So let's take a quick pause here. There's a question concerning the consent calendar agenda, item 4C. Bear with me. So are you recognizing that Major Cunningham
Is this license?
is listed twice as Major?
And it should be captain, correct?
I think so.
Okay.
So what we'll do is we'll check with, I don't think it requires a revote, but we'll check. It could just be a typo. But we'll check and make sure that that's corrected in the record.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. You check on that? Item 4C, it says major to major. Yeah, good thing. Or I suppose it could be major current, but I don't think it's major. But we'll check. Did we vote on number 6? We did, okay, great. Thank you. Did you? John Taylor? That's thank you. Moving on with the regular agenda, I now ask for a motion to adopt agenda item 7 from the Department of Health and Human Services from the Office of Medicaid Services.
No questions.
So there's a motion?
So moved.
Motion and a second, thank you. And your question, I think the Commissioner is here.
Good morning.
Morning, Commissioner.
Thank you. First question about this particular item. I have no problem with paying the retention fees. I'm just wondering, is there a permanent fix in the works here so that we don't have to keep doing these temporary fixes to bring people up to competitive wages?
Wage salaries are negotiated to the collective bargaining agreement, so that is probably a better question for that and the negotiating of the
And Governor, is there an update on the contract?
No.
Now that the budget has been submitted, I think we should probably see some movement there.
Well, sorry, I'll absolutely answer the question. Let's just stick with this item if we could, and then I'll come right back to your answer if that's okay.
Commissioner Schmidt, so we've been watching for 18 years these incremental increases. My question is there the potential for a reclassification waiver per Chapter 21? There's an opening within Medicaid services. I'm not sure if the level is correct. It's in LG 33. Is that an opportunity?
I'm going to break Deputy Commissioner Weaver. We do reclassifications very often in the department. It really depends on where their job description falls. Each job description gets tested, right? And it depends on where they fall. Our enhancements are really based on the ability to recruit and retain because of competitive wages. But Deputy Commissioner Weaver probably can give you more information on that.
Thank you.
So could you, good morning, I'm Lori Weaver, Deputy Commissioner. Could you just repeat the question?
Sure, so we've been launching these incremental increases for 18 years, and, to invest in human capital to give some sense of permanence to this role, to this position, which is a critical role. I mean, it's truly specialized. There's a vacancy within Medicaid, and again, it's an LG 33. I'm not sure what that salary is, but is it possible to request a reclassification waiver for this position?
In the instance of this, the reason why we don't for the reclass is because the salaries don't match up. So
Okay.
our highest paid grades are 35, and we don't have many positions, and they're very specific duties for that. So we wouldn't be able to fall within the bounds to do that. So oftentimes we have to do the enhancement to meet the salary match. And you'll see that in other state agencies as well.
And so if we reclass them into that position, for example, then the position in that position would be a reduction. We would
Right.
almost, and if there's someone occupying that position or there's a position that we're recruiting for, then I no longer have that position. Instead, I'm moving this person into that
So
position.
she's at 30, the candidate right now is at 35, and that would be a downgrade to 33, is what you're saying.
I think if they're 35, but what I'm saying is that the reason we're enhancing is because our current salary structure won't match what the salary is, so we have to ask for the enhancement. And sometimes it's really looking at the total classification within itself and then asking for that, just like nurses. So that's really, it stems from a DAS or a DOT issue because it applies to so many different positions.
Thank you.
So I'm going to throw my 2 cents on here. And Commissioner Arlinghouse, I won't ask you any questions, but I would just throw our state classification system, the personnel system that we currently use, is insanely antiquated. Decades and decades, like 50 years or something unbelievable. And I know Commissioner Arlinghouse and I see Commissioner Sheehan in the back, who from the DOT has really taken a lead on this, and they've been looking for ways for quite a while in terms of we've kind of patched together. This is almost an example of the random patches we do from time to time. But one thing I think everybody agrees is that there, at some point, a kind of a whiteboarding of the personnel and classification system, I think, does have to happen. It's very complicated. It comes with a lot of ramifications, and we have to understand that. We need the systems to support that. But I don't want to put you on the spot, Charlie, but it's a great point to bring up with this council because it's something that the council ultimately would like to be very involved in.
I want to clarify that I was right about how antiquated our system is, and it's difficult. The difficulty with any classification system is that we have 3 different ones in the state, right? One giant one for almost all employees, which is the classification system, all essentially unionized employees, where we pay people $100,000 a year. We pay them as if they're hourly, and the 38th hour they work, they get overtime, despite the fact that they're an accountant making $110,000. The unclassified system is slightly different, but it's also a classification system. And then there's a weirdness for most of the attorney generals, not that one, or his deputy, but the rest of them. There are 2 points here. The one is the classification process, which is an attempt to take a position and allocate it compared to everyone else, which is to achieve systemic equity, where I look at a position and I say, based on responsibilities, I don't get to say, Lori doesn't get to say, I like you, you're 35. I don't like you, you're 33. You either are or you aren't based on that. The second part of that does not take into account market. Our job, we have a bunch of jobs that are below market, and this is one of them. There is a provision in the law to address market issues, as we do with nurses and pharmacists in particular, and that's what this is. It's an attempt to take a system that's meant to be complicated and to adjust it. And that's what this does. So it's part of the system, but the fixes are also part of the system. So the reason they're not reclassing is because that doesn't work for this. What we're addressing here is not the complexity of the job, but the fact that you can't hire a pharmacist at that salary. And there are a lot of positions in state government where you can't hire someone at that salary. So we do the best we can, and we hire somebody who will stay for a year with that salary until finally they realize they can get a job somewhere else and leave, but at least you know them for a year. But in this case, we make that adjustment, but to an entire category, not to a job. Like you have to adjust everybody who's that kind of a person.
Much bigger discussion on it.
Right.
Do you have another question? Further discussion on this item? So I just want to make sure we're clear about this specific item. To your concern over the collective bargaining agreement, I think everybody was very surprised when the unions up and declared an impasse and demanded mediation before I'd even presented my budget. They completely walked away from the table. So that was a shock to everyone, and therefore that's why the budget was presented as it was. They didn't even want to be part of that. So I think we're all surprised by it, but now we'll go into the mediation process, and that's just where we are. So, seems like a pretty bizarre strategy. But be that as it may, we'll work through it. Okay, further discussion on number 7? Okay, here we go. Further discussion. All in favor of item 7, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, item 7 is approved. I now ask for a motion to adopt agenda item 8 from the Department of Health and Human Services from the Division of Economic and Housing Stability.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
And any opposed? Hearing no opposition, the item 8 is approved. I now ask for a motion to adopt agenda items 9 and 10 from the Department of Health and Human Services from the Division of Children, Youth, and Families.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Councilor Wheeler?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, items 9 and 10 are approved. I now ask for a motion to adopt agenda items 11 through 14 from the Department of Health and Human Services from Public Health Services.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Thank you. Any discussion on any of these items? Councilor?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, on item number 11, these funds were received almost a year ago, and I was just curious, the funds from the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry came in March 23rd, 2020. So there's some reason why they have been held up.
I guess it's related to awards, but I'm going to identify Lisa Morris, who is on the phone from Public Health, that can answer that question.
Yeah, hi, this is Lisa Morris, Director of the Division of Public Health Services. It was very difficult to hear the question. Can somebody restate it, please?
Sure. The funds that were coming through the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry came in March 23rd of 20. So we're nearing a year. I'm curious as to why they were held up.
So I don't think they were held up, but what happened was that this grant was actually a grant that was granted to the Department of Environmental Services. And so they received these dollars. They had their own GNC item, I'm sure, and this money is coming over to us from them, and this was the earliest we could get it on the GNC.
To paraphrase, I think DES was awarded the actual money last year, and now they're contracting or doing an MOU with us to use part of that award.
Thank you.
Further discussion, Councilor Warmington?
This is in the public health session, right place to ask you about an update on vaccine distribution, when we might expect to see registration for phase 2 open, and when we might expect to see the dashboard with the vaccination.
Dashboard is still being reviewed internally for public, to execute publicly. We do our weekly dashboard every week with our public updates. Vaccine distribution is in administration is going well. I think we simplified the process a lot by giving the second appointment at the first appointment after the vaccination. That has really freed up a lot of callbacks to people that we're having problems with the VAN system. So we're doing probably 3,000 or 4,000 vaccinations per day, And then we have Walgreens that came on last week that is supplementing what we're giving, and their allocation is increasing. Our vaccine allocation has increased this week also. So it keeps ticking up gradually to provide more vaccination for the state. 2A, which would be the next phase, we don't have any immediate plans to open it right now, but what I can tell you is that as we start seeing registrations slow down from phase 1B, we will start opening up phase 2A. Our hope is that when we get to 2A, we will transition over to more of our state system, so we want to make sure that state system is up and running so that we don't have the same hiccups that we had with the advanced system in 1B. So right now, our appointments are booking out into April, so I would say even 30 days before the end of 1B, we will start registering for 2A.
So could you still expect to see 2 completed in the original predicted March through May timeframe? Phase 2?
Oh, phase 2. It will be, if not completed, well on its way. Yes.
True to form, you were very honest in saying you were going to work from the back of the list, and you've seen the emails from my constituents who are just elated by the response from Walgreens. My constituents are thrilled, and they thank you, as you saw in the email. So well done.
Yes, we've made thousands of calls. The team of public health and the Homeland Security have made thousands of calls, taking people that were originally scheduled in April and May and moving them up to a more recent time frame. So we are making good progress on that. And as more vaccination comes available, we will be moving more people up and or opening to it.
Well done.
And I would just add in my 2 cents, I know Commissioner Sheehan is in the back, and they'll allow the folks at DOT are really stepped up to help a lot, make just a lot of those phone calls, which is great. We want to thank our employees.
Real estate governments have come together right now. We have people from every state agency working on vaccination right now, not just HHS.
I just want to say my constituents are very happy that you're giving out the second appointment. That's going very smoothly, and the response to that has been very positive.
Councilor Gaston?
Thank you. I want to commend you because the change made a big difference. There aren't any phone calls coming except for the folks that are elderly that are homebound.
We'll be opening up that program in about a week.
When you say you're opening it up, do you mean that somebody's going to go to their home?
Yes, yes. Right now, we're controlling for adverse reactions. So one of the issues that we have with giving this vaccination is people that have a history of anaphylaxis or allergic reaction have a very severe reaction. So we want to make sure that the people providing the vaccine in the home have the same tools that we have at our site. So if there is a negative reaction, we can treat it right there on site.
Now, how do the folks that are administering the vaccine know that the person is homebound?
So we are doing a variety of things. We are, number one, going through all of our home care agencies, and we're collecting a list of everybody that's homebound. Right now, we're estimating that that population to be about 50,000 people that are homebound in New Hampshire. So we go through the home care agencies, a variety of the nonprofits, and then we will create a way for people to self-select in, so maybe they don't receive the services through a home care agency, that will give them a hotline or a number or an email to contact so that we can put them on the schedule to be vaccinated.
And how do they get that hotline?
We will release it publicly once we have our plan fully hatched out.
Okay. And what about the people that are, if somebody is homebound and they're not with an agency, are they also vaccinating the folks that are taking care of that person at home?
Only if they qualify through the program. So the goal is to vaccinate the most vulnerable person in the household. So the person that's elderly or with underlying conditions, that's the person that's most vulnerable to negative outcomes for COVID, so that's the person we would vaccinate. The exception to that is if the vulnerable person is a child, which is not qualified for the vaccination, we vaccinate their caregivers to protect the vulnerable individual.
Well, let me just say it again, the folks have done a great job of changing it around because
credit really goes to Homeland Security. Terry Plummer has been instrumental along with Beth Daly and Public Health, Governor's Office, for making all that happen.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you.
It's all a team. And by the way, we got a long way to go. And if there's anything I've learned, things can go wrong, but we have the right team that just grabs a hold. Anytime something goes wrong, big or small, they grab a hold of it and fix it, and that's the most important thing.
May I ask a question regarding item number 13? So we're basically employing phlebotomists, and within this contract, Exhibit D 1.12, it just concerns me that it does not clarify if these providers are registered by, I guess it would be the Board of Medical Technicians. What sort of credentialing?
They would have to be licensed phlebotomists, but we can't contract with individuals that are not licensed to do that standard of care in our state.
So the licensure board would be the Board for Medical Technicians, correct?
I'm not sure which licensure board oversees phlebotomists, but I can find
I
out.
think it is, but I think it might be important to include in that exhibit.
So is she proper licensure
Yeah.
for the state of New Hampshire?
Yes.
I'll check and see if it's anywhere else in any of our exhibits or our contracts. Oftentimes it's in there somewhere, but no phlebotomist is allowed to do phlebotomy without a license in New Hampshire. So I think there is an assumption there that if you're performing phlebotomy services, you need to be licensed as a phlebotomist. But I can double check.
Thank you.
Okay, you can't do that.
I can't do phlebotomy. God bless anyone who's a phlebotomist. I don't know how they do it.
One more question.
Amazing. Yes.
There's a disparity. The initial statement says that 42% of the general fund will be used for the epidemiological studies, but I'm also seeing 32% being referenced on Exhibit B2, Amendment 3. So I guess I'm just seeking clarification on the percentage of general funds that are being used.
I'll have our finance division work that out for you and send you an email. Would that be?
That's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilor Kenny.
Thank you, Governor. Back on the vaccine registry topic, thank you for all the work you're doing. You probably have heard less from me last week than you did the previous week.
I'm assuming that you're probably talking to Perry Moore. He's really been doing a lot of both him and I are taking calls. But things have smoothed out, for sure, with the second appointment calls and our cards and with our callbacks. We initially had several thousand people to call back. And that anxiety of not receiving that call on the first day really creates that reach out that you're getting. So I think we've gotten through the vast majority of the people that were on our callback list. We probably still have, occasionally every day, I get a couple of emails from councilors or legislators about one-offs that schedule their appointment in May for some reason, and we just call them and we fix it.
So you usually hear about the complaints, particularly early on. Do you also want to hear about the good things we do?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I love to pass that on to the team, right? The team is working very hard.
Because I've had a few people say, it's not me, and of course I want to take credit for it, it's not me, it's you.
And it's not me, it's the team. So I just want to be able to keep passing it down.
Okay, I'm going to forward you some really nice, thoughtful emails that came back about the great work that you've done. The other question I had was, there was kind of a petition going on at the Horse Meadows up in North Haverhill to kind of create a vaccine site. Were you aware of that at all? Or?
So I did send you a map of all the locations that we're doing vaccinations. And North Country is more or less covered. There are several sites, either by hospital, at the hospital, or at our fixed sites. So we feel like we have the geographic locations covered. I don't think there would be any opposition to hearing from someone if they felt like they had a great idea for a site. I think the limiting factor, again, is going to be two things. The amount of vaccine that we have to be able to supply the site, and vaccinators, because when we spread our vaccinators all over the state, it becomes difficult to staff it 12 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion on any of these items?
Yes, item 13.
Sure.
Item 13, I couldn't hear all the phlebotomist discussion there. So I may be repeating a question, but it seems to me that item 13 here is from an out-of-state contractor, and it's sole source. And that doesn't really make any sense to me. And why that would have to be sole source and why local government couldn't do it, Lord knows I'm surrounded.
I'm going to identify Lisa Morris, who is on the phone, to answer the question on why that contract was sole source.
Yes, thank you for that question, Counselor. So this is the reason that it's sole source is this is the only organization that provides mobile statewide collection of blood and urine. So these aren't individual, they are individual phlebotomists that are doing the collection, but this is an organization that employs them that is doing this mobile work statewide.
I just find that hard to believe that we have to go to Florida to find someone that can provide phlebotomy services. It just kind of, I think I'd like to put this on the table and explore this a little bit more. It just seems like we could be able to find some New Hampshire people to be doing New Hampshire work.
Unfortunately, so this particular organization does have a presence in New Hampshire. They are located, their parent company or their company is located in Florida, but of course they have presence in New Hampshire, and there really isn't another organization that provides that mobile service statewide that we need it to. And the level of phlebotomy service is extensive, about 1,200 home visits in essence. And so, unfortunately, there isn't an organization like this in New Hampshire.
I'd still like to put this on the table if the council is willing and move the table to
So there's a motion.
look at it a little bit further.
Is there information that I can provide to you in the time between now and the next meeting to help you feel more comfortable with this?
Okay, that'd be great. So I move the table.
I will.
Item 13.
Okay, so there's a motion to table. Is there a second? Is there a second on the motion to table?
Second.
Okay, there's a second to the motion to table. All in favor of tabling item 13, please signify by saying aye.
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 Councilor
Aye.
Wheeler, aye. Any opposed to tabling?
No.
No and a noes. Item 13 is tabled. So, Councilor Kenny.
That actually might ask for reconsideration, but is there any time-sensitive question with regards to not passing this contract today?
So, Councilor Kenny, thank you very much for your question. This is a federal grant that requires us to provide these phlebotomy services so that we can test these individuals for environmental hazards that may be in their blood or urine. And so, there is some semblance of urgency in that we will not be able to move forward with this organization to be able to provide that service and may not meet our federal deadlines.
Are they currently under contract, Lisa?
They are currently under contract, yes.
And when does that contract end?
Actually, I'm not quite sure if they're currently under contract because this goes back to January 1. So I would have to check to see if they're currently under contract. I will do that prior to the ensuring that you have that information before the end of the Governor Council meeting.
So this is really a retroactive contract.
I'm going to have to get more information.
Yeah.
So, Governor, I'd be willing to reconsider the contract if you get further information.
Okay, well, let's see what you guys can get for us. It is a 2-year contract. Again, I'm not sure what federal requirements we're not going to meet in the next 2 weeks. Maybe there are some. So we should probably look into that as well.
Yeah, we can have the additional information by the next meeting if
Okay.
you'd like to table it, and I can dig into it a little bit more, or would you like Lisa to go and do some exploring now and try to come back by the end of the meeting?
Well, if we can be held off for 2 weeks, I'd rather get more complete information as long as, there's nothing that says that we're not going to, would lose the grant.
We will figure out how to get blood drawn in the next 2 weeks.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you. I want to go ahead and do it well.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, so...
Governor and councilors, I think I'm going to sign off now. I think I reached my limit. So thank you
Understood.
for your indulgence. Yeah,
Well, thank you, Councilor Wheeler. Hope you feel better. We'll talk soon. Get some rest.
thanks.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you. So, any other questions on any of these items, item 15 being tabled? Any of the other items from? Okay, see here, no further request for discussion. All in favor of items 11, 12, 14, and 14, 11, 12, and 14, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And with that, the items are approved. I now ask for a motion to adopt agenda items 15 through 20 from the Department of Health and Human Services and the Division for Behavioral Health.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Councilor Gaddis.
Governor, I noticed that on these 10 items, that 11 of them are the sole source. And I'm not pushing the subject because I know you're under a lot of pressure with this COVID thing. But I think we have to start recognizing what's happening.
So a lot of these contracts are for funding, which is our doorway programs and the services that go around the doorway program. Anything that you see retroactive to September, those are the doorway program services or the SOAR money. And those are services already set up and being provided. So the reason why it's sole source and we couldn't bid it is because the federal government was late in giving the award. So in order to be able to continue to provide these services without interruption, because they've been providing the services since September without payment, we thought it best to sole source these programs rather than go through a 6-month procurement process.
So this is the case where we can blame the Fed that they were slow.
We can't blame the Fed in this case. I can't blame it in every case, but in this case I can. For a lot of them, not all of them, but I agree with you that some things like mobile crisis in Nashua is a great example. We have RFP'd that several times, and why it moved in a sole source direction, I would have to get more information on that, but it was likely that they were the only community mental health center interested in providing it at this point because of COVID in a lot of ways. But I do have that lens, Councilor.
Thank you.
Councilor Stevens.
So regards to contract item 15, that had to be sole source because it was proprietary. The IPU could not modify the software.
Yes.
So that was essential. I looked at that. Item number 16, it states that there's 3 additional sites. I would just love to know, as we saw with our RCO situation, how many sites do we have at this time, and where will these 3 additional sites? It just wasn't clear to me.
And number 16?
Yeah, it discusses 3 additional sites.
Katja, are you on the phone that maybe you have that answer?
So, good morning, Governor and Council. So, looking at that, I am, first of all, I should introduce myself. I'm Katja Fox, Director of the Division for Behavioral Health. And I will need to get back to you on that. I don't have that information readily available.
And I just applaud you for pursuing medicated assisted treatment for adolescents. It was embraced by the American Academy of Pediatrics. There was so much pushback. I applaud you for this.
The hallmark treatment for substance use disorder, so we support it.
Well done.
Sure, Councilor Warren.
On item 17, it said that the startup costs were not included in the original contract, but on Exhibit C it says that it includes payment for the startup period expenses and set forth not to exceed what's set forth in Exhibit C3. And Exhibit C3 is hard to read, but it looks like around $480,000, and this comes in at over, they exceeded that. So I'm just sort of wondering, was there something that caused them to exceed the amount of the startup costs that they were contracted to?
Katja, do you have that answer?
So, yes, again, this was an oversight on the department's behalf in that we had the language for the startup costs. However, we didn't have the funding included and reflected in the financial portion. As far as exceeding the amount, I'm going to have to get back to you. My guess is that it took a little bit longer for them to stand up the services. And while we're talking about Greater Nashua, I just wanted to remind everyone, especially Councilor Gassett, that this is sole source primarily because the previous vendor declined to continue that service, and that was Harbor Homes. And so we did need to go to sole source to be able to continue those critical services in the Greater Nashua area.
I just want to say I'm very cognizant of how critical these services are, very supportive of them, and I don't want to hold up this contract, but if you could get back to me on what the reason was for exceeding the contracted startup costs, I'd like to know that.
Okay. Councilor Seaton.
So there's a safety net with community mental health care centers. They have to go through every 5 years a reapproval review, correct? It's a very obvious.
Officially, yes, but I think that the partnership and the collaboration is a day-to-day conversation.
Right.
We have daily conversations about clients that, feel like they need different services or what the community mental health center needs to provide services. For sure, it's daily.
But it's a thorough audit.
It's a very thorough audit.
Their board
Yeah.
structure, their governance, so
Yeah.
there's a level of security with
There is.
Yes.
Councilor Gatsas.
Thank you, Governor. Kathy, thank you for pointing out that that's a replacement on Harbor Homes. So obviously what you're telling me is that there are other agencies out there that can do the work that Harbor Homes is doing, as we've had this discussion for the last 3 years. So thank you.
Further discussion, Councilor Seaton.
Lastly, on item number 19, would county correctional officers be eligible to attend and participate?
That's up to the Department of Corrections, and that would be a question directed at Commissioner Hanks. I know that the DOC contracts with NAMI for this specific contract. Several of the county jails have relationships with NAMI, but I am not sure if they do the level of education that's in this contract. But I'm sure Commissioner Hanks would be able to answer.
Thank you.
Yep.
Further discussion? Okay, hearing no further discussion on these items, all in favor of items 15 through 20, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The items are approved. Moving on to our items from the Department of Transportation. Could I get a motion to adopt items 21 through 35 from the DOT? Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion on any of these items? Councilor Gatsas?
Thank you, Governor.
I think the Commissioner is here with us.
Kind of a working draft of the day, so you can kind of get a sense, and then we can talk a little bit.
Okay, sounds good.
Items 31, 32, 33, 34, and 35. They're all million-dollar contracts. I think there are 5 in this agenda, and there were 5 in the last agenda. Is there a reason, can we get some history on what these contracts were in the past, for how much, and how much was spent on? Because I just find $10 million an awful lot of money. That can just be there in the slush fund. Because it certainly could be $10 million that could be spent on Exit 4F.
Good morning, Governor. Good morning, Councilors. Victoria Sheehan, Commissioner at DOC. My understanding is that the prior contracts were for a similar amount of money. These are on-call design contracts. The ones before you today, items 31, 32, 33, and 35 are associated with the same procurement. They're for on-call environmental services, specifically for evaluation of contamination and hazardous materials. And there's one item today which is an on-call engineering contract, that's item number 34. And I believe the last Governor and Council agenda included more of the design type contracts, if my memory serves me right. But what we do is we routinely procure these on-call services so that we can be nimble and respond to issues that come up on projects. And so through the 10-year plan process, we budget a certain amount for preliminary engineering for each project. Those dollars are budgeted. These contracts we use to perform the work that's necessary. So when we start a project, we're not always sure what specialty services we might need, in particular things like hazardous materials. So we have an adequate budget within the 10-year plan for design, and then we use these contracts as necessary to make sure that we get all the information we need to be able to advance the project. So in the case of a project like 4A, one of the things we saw when the prices came in, and it was much higher than what we expected, was that the contracting teams had bid things more conservatively because we didn't have detailed information on some of the hazardous materials. So it's this type of contract that helps us out in that area. We can go and do additional evaluations and then have better information, have accurate quantities when we bid that work. So that's why we keep these on-call contracts. For large-scale projects, then we do individual procurements, and we bid, the entire development of a single project. And these are for support of our entire design program to make sure that we have the services we need and don't have delays having to procure each individual aspect and come through the GEC process. So the dollars are still budgeted in the 10-year plan. All of the money that we're spending on design is accounted for in the 10-year plan.
So these items are in the 10-year plan?
These items aren't, the projects are. So what will happen is, as we're advancing the design of a project and we discover we need to do some more hazardous material evaluation, as we found today, we'll reach out to one of these firms that we have on call, we'll negotiate a scope and fee for that task. It might only be $10,000 or $20,000 depending on the size of the project, but we will charge to the project and take the money from the design budget in the 10-year plan. This is more the mechanism to get the work done.
Over the past 5 years, could you give us an itemized number each year on what was returned and not spent in these line items?
So all of the money would have been spent. For contracts like this, we only procure new services once we've expended all of the funds associated with the contract. We don't like to keep adding money to these contracts. We do another procurement when we have allocated $1 million worth of work to an individual firm. So the amount spent, I can get the breakdown of how quickly we assigned tasks to these firms and spent down the $100 million, but the full value of the old contracts would be utilized. That's why we did a procurement and moving forward with these new contracts today. Certainly, I can give you the breakdown of how much we spent on different types of specialty on-call services and the total amount.
Isn't there a way that in your budget that you could have a line item that says specialty call and all 10 million sit there and then you can drop down on it?
That's essentially what we do. We budget for the project more so than for the specialties. And these contracts are procured in such a way that the firms aren't guaranteed the work. We could spend the money quickly because we happen to have a couple of projects where we need the services immediately, or it can take several years to draw down $1 million. So they are basically awarded the contract with the understanding that we will utilize them as needed. There's no firm commitment to spend money in a certain time frame.
And if I could ask, so how long did I don't have the contract for example, how long does this go up?
These ones go up to 2025.
2025. Okay, thank you very much. So in theory, if the dollars didn't get spent over the next four years,
And we'd either close the contract early because we want to re-procure and make sure that we're truly picking the teams that have the best services, or what typically happens is we don't see that much change in the market, and we try to have as many folks on call as possible. We wait until the money is expended. So if we have a lot of dollars left, we might come back and ask for an extension of time to continue working with that firm. The other thing you should know is once we will award tasks all the way till the end of 2025, but if the work takes another 6 months or a year to complete, these contracts are awarded in such a way that we're allowed to do that. So we'll make assignments up until February 2025, and usually all the money's gone by that point, and then we put to the next round.
So wouldn't it be easier to give them $200,000 a year?
We may not have adequate work. It all depends on the size and scale of our
Well, this is
construction
prepayment
program.
of $1 million for a 5-year contract.
But we may have one large project where they expend $500,000 in a single year, and then a series of smaller projects that are scattered. It all depends on the particular design challenges that we encounter.
And they get paid after they do the work.
So we get paid for performing work.
So you'll get us something that shows what,
I'll get you the totals that we spend on these types of contracts.
thank you.
Maybe over how far, if you want to go back.
Well, for a 5-year contract, over 5 years.
For the prior contract that we're replacing today, as well as similar types of contracts, I'll get you the rate at which we expended the dollars on these projects.
Thank you.
Councilor Stevens.
Commissioner, in regards to contract 31, there's a list of subconsulting supporting services. There's 3 of them. And I'm just curious if these 3 providers are coming from the DOT master sole source list that you've generated.
I'm happy with this particular item, sorry. Give me 1 second to turn it
It's on
on.
page 10 of number 31.
So when we receive the proposals from the teams that are interested in bidding on this work, they prepare the list of all the personnel, including the sub-consultants who they would like to partner with, and we take that into consideration when we score the proposals. So we are rating the qualifications of the entire team, the prime and the subcontractors. So we're looking at who they're proposing to use and exactly what their credentials are.
Because this is the only contract that referenced subcontractors, so, but thank you for clarifying.
Councilor Kenny.
Thank you, Governor. This might be a clerical error, but I was just noticing on contract 25 and 26, those numbers add up, but when I look at contract 28 and 29 and compare it to the contract itself, there's a total for 28 that's $13,363.75. In contract 29, a total of $26,477.50. Is that a clerical error?
So glancing at the items, I think the data in the items is correct. It's just the titles of the items in the governing council agenda that seems to be inaccurate. We really believe that yes, it was a mistake.
Okay.
Instead of taking the individual values from each agreement, which is an issue in titling the items in the agenda.
Okay. I saw all these numbers that were the same. I didn't know if there was some type of uniform cost for lease agreements.
The cost per linear foot is standardized at $34.97. So it all depends on the amount of frontage that we're discussing. So sometimes by coincidence it'll be the same length, especially if parcels were subdivided in a similar fashion. And other times, of course, you don't want frontage, and so there's no.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Item 22, that's acquisition of right-of-ways for residential area. Have you chosen the design team?
Yes, as I shared at the last governor and council meeting, we did select the design team. We are currently negotiating the cost and fee proposal, and our goal is to bring that contract before you in early spring so that we can start work with them.
That one?
It takes time to finalize the negotiations, and then obviously work through the governor and council side to get the contract executed, but we should be here, we're still targeting late March. So it's probably going to be an April P&C by the time we submit the contract.
Well, but, if it was one of the design teams that did the work in the front end, maybe it would be a lot sooner.
Certainly, that was why we selected, shortlisted the 3 design firms that were associated with the design build proposal. This is federally funded design work, so after we prepared the contracts and negotiated everything, it has to be reviewed and approved by federal highway, and so all of that process is taking time. But the previously provided schedule with the suggested timeline, we're still on track against that revised schedule that we prepared.
Okay.
Further discussion for any of these items from the Department of Transportation? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of items 21 through 35, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, the items are approved. Thank you, Commissioner. I now ask for motion to adopt agenda item 36 from the Community Development Finance Authority.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 36 is approved. I now ask for motion to adopt agenda item 37, 38, and 39 from the State Treasury.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those items are approved. I now ask for motion to adopt agenda item 40 for the Department of Agriculture, Markets, and Food.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 40 is approved. I now ask for motion to adopt agenda item 41 from the Department of Military Affairs and Veteran Services.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Kenny.
Thank you. Who's representing
Do we have General Michaelitis on? I think either, do we have either General Michaelitis or Warren Perry on with us today?
Sir, can you hear me? It's, for the record, it's Warren Perry, Deputy Adjutant General, Department of Military Affairs and Veteran Services.
Hey Warren, how are you?
I'm fine, sir.
Good, good. I think we have a question from Councilor Kenny.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Governor. When we're looking at additional renovation projects in overtime, is that currently ongoing? Is that a future project?
It will be for future projects. Clearly, the overtime will cover any overtime costs associated with what's going on, but it'll be for a future project. So this is just the authority to accept the money, and no contracts have been let for these projects yet.
Okay. And do we have any immediate projects in the future that we're going to be looking at?
Well, there are a list of projects that I can get them to you. I don't have them off the top of my head right now, but, essentially this money came about because the National Guard Bureau granted a waiver for the state share. So they're just giving us, normally the state would be on the hook for this $500,000. The federal government is just going to pick up the state share of that money, and that's why it's coming.
That's right. Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? Are you all set, Councilor Kenny? Okay? Okay, great. All right, well, seeing no further discussion, all in favor of item 41, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 41 is approved. I now ask for motion to adopt agenda items 43 and 44 for the Public Utility Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Stevens.
In regards to item 44, I'm just curious about the basis for this amount. And secondly, I see a reference to KW Management. I'm not sure if they're inferring that they're going to be doing the design to implementation. I just have some concerns. I'm all on board for this project, yet I do have a few questions.
So I think is Commissioner Martin, are you on the line with us?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, Diane, how are you?
Okay, good. I'm great. Thank you.
Great, I apologize. I'm going to have Councilor C, do you mind just repeating your question, just to make sure she heard you okay?
Certainly. Good morning. Within this,
Morning.
within this contract, I'm seeing a reference to KW Management. Are we to assume that they're going to be doing the design to installation and the basis for the submission for $253,000?
Councilor Diane Martin, Chairwoman of the Public Utilities Commission. Nice to meet you for the first time. Can you point me to the page that you're looking at in the item?
Yes, on page Exhibit B, the second page, paragraph 5, installation of a project from KW Management Incorporated.
Well, this grant is to Aberdeen West Cooperative Incorporated. I would have to get more information from the division as to whether they are a subcontractor who is working on the project with Aberdeen, but they are not the grantee.
Yes, I assume that. All right, thank you.
Further discussion? Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Martin. All in favor of items 43 and 44, would you please signify by saying aye? Aye. Any opposed? The items are approved. Thank you. I now ask for a motion to adopt agenda item 45 from the Site Evaluation Committee.
So moved.
Second. The motion and the second. Any discussion? Councilor Stevens.
I spoke with Representative Weiler this morning, and this has not gone to the fiscal committee yet. It's going on Friday. And some of the categories, he too agreed that they needed additional information. So I would like to suggest tabling this.
Okay. Do we know, is there a reason, I don't know if someone, either Commissioner Martin or someone from the Site Evaluation Committee is on, do we know why this is going to us before the fiscal committee? Is it?
Governor?
Yes.
It's Diane Martin again. I'm also the chairwoman of the Site Evaluation Committee. I'm not sure why it came to the GMC first. I think it's just a matter of timing when it traveled through DAS, and this meeting happened to be first, and so the item is contingent upon approval by fiscal. So if not approved by fiscal on Friday, then it will not, it will fail.
Is it something that, is there a reason, if it went to fiscal first and came back to us in 2 weeks, do you know if that would cause problems with any of the multiple items that are embedded in there?
I think that we could live, there are a number of meetings that need to be had related to existing projects, and we, the Site Evaluation Committee, does not have either, it has received no filing fees since 2019 and has no general fund appropriation. And so we are in a difficult position of essentially not being able to act because we have no funding and can't act without authority, obviously, from the legislature and the government council. So I could move out. I believe we have a meeting scheduled. I don't know that we have anything between now and 2 weeks, and if we did, I could move it out if need be.
And I need to 41 at the same time. And give them some fiscal committee approval. And we've had a lot of those items.
Yes.
That come before we approve before fiscal season.
Yeah.
There's one of the five of them on here.
Yeah. I can understand sometimes if there is something necessary and the timing is at that point. So would you like to?
I'm happy to answer any questions about specific items within the request as well, if that's helpful.
I'd rather wait for fiscal.
Okay, so I have a motion to table. Is there a second on the motion to table? No? No second. Okay. Try it.
I'll second. I'll second.
Okay, so we have a second. All in favor of tabling item 45, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
So that's 2-2, so the motion to table fails. So we still have any additional questions on item 45? Still here. Okay, we'll see no additional discussion. All in favor of item 45, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Noting the no, the item does pass. Thank you very much. But we shall keep an eye on that. Moving on, and now is for motion to adopt agenda item 46 for the Office of the Consumer Advocate.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 46 is approved. And now is for motion to adopt agenda items 47, 48, and 49 from the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Stevens, do we have Director Scott Mason on? Director Mason, are you with us today?
Yes, I am.
Well, good morning. I think Councilor Stevens might have a question.
Good morning. I'm a bit concerned about this sole source contract going to a vendor just across the river. You know, the scope of this involves pollinators, and we have a contract right in front of us from earlier, contract number 40, on integrated pest management, which deals with pollinators. So that raises my concern that why is this a sole source? And I have indication that a portion of this can be, done within the state of New Hampshire with one of our providers or any other contractor. So that's my question.
Okay, I have Mike Mitigation with us, and he is in charge of our non-game species program.
Hi, good morning. Mike Marchand. I'll try to answer that question. So this project is requesting funds. This is 100% federal funds. It's a 5-year grant we have with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to do these specific projects that are identified and were approved by all the state directors in the Northeast. So that contractor, Wildlife Management Institute, they are the ones that are administering the overall grant for the Fish and Wildlife Service and all the states. The actual work that will occur will be distributed through RFP process throughout the region, and so the actual pollinator projects are happening throughout the region. Some of that work could indeed occur in New Hampshire. The Wildlife Management Institute is simply administering the overall grant and essentially making sure the grant stays on track.
Thank you.
And so this is year 3, 4, and 5 of a 5-year grant that we're continuing on with.
Okay. Further discussion on any of these items? Okay, hearing no further discussion, all in favor of items 47, 48, and 49, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The items are approved. I now ask for motion to adopt agenda item 50 from the Department of Business and Economic Affairs. So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Councilor Kenny, I think we have our illustrious commissioner with us today.
Oh, good.
Hello.
He's in person, even better.
I'm here for you, Councilor. Taylor Council,
Decaf.
Department of Business and Economic Affairs.
Nice to see you, Commissioner. So my question is, we had something similar, I think a meeting or so ago, with request for funds from Northern Borders to support something in your department. In this case, I think it was the recreational office or of some kind. In this amount here, you're trying to create a position, a technical assistant service position for project development. And my question is this solely being sourced by this amount from Northern Borders, or is there some other attachments to it?
So just a clarification, Councilor. So the resources for this program that you're reviewing today are for the cost of a consultant to work with project developers across the 6 counties that Northern Border region operates in. and that there's eligibility for programming there, to help facilitate more programs being proposed for the Northern Border Commission funding programs. So a lot of the capacity grant program that you see here is something that comes to each state that participates in the commission. And so rather than use that resource for positions within the Department of Business and Economic Affairs, we want to be able to provide that service externally to experts and technical assistance for those projects as they come to Northern Borders for funding, including USDA, EDA, CDFA, any of the other typical funding programs that go with this. We've really sort of seen, as you're well aware, that there has been some difference in capacity among applicants across the entire Northern Border region. So my goal with this is to be able to help provide some continuity and availability of technical assistance to get this funding into these programs.
So is this for a consultant to do that, or is this, it's a consultant?
Yes,
Okay.
it's a consultant.
Good. So in other words, this will be a one-shot deal, and that we're not going to be sustaining this into the future.
That would be the idea, that once you sort of establish that capacity among a lot of the players and they know how to do these, this is getting increasingly complicated to be able to apply for various federal programs and state programs and make them work together for the benefit of a single project. So we want to be able to have that capacity on a much broader scale across the rural areas of the state.
Just my last question on a separate topic. Keene decided not to move forward with their Northern Borders Grant program, which I think they got like $1 million.
Yep.
Does that go into a bigger pot, or does that go back into the New Hampshire pot?
Comes right back to the New Hampshire pot, Counselor. So that'll be recycled into the upcoming grant round that will be started soon.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you. Further questions on this item? Okay. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of item 50, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item 50 is approved. I now ask for motion to adopt agenda items 51 and 51A from the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. With a motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The items are approved. I now ask for motion to adopt agenda items 52 through 56 from the Department of Environmental Services.
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The items from DES are approved. I now ask for motion on agenda item 57 from the New Hampshire Veterans Home.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
No question.
Councilor Warrington?
Good morning.
Oh, hi, Peggy. How are you? How are you?
How about
Good to see you. You're hiding over there, right?
I was outside.
That's great. Good to see you.
Nice to see you. It's nice to see you all for the first time, especially.
Great.
Nice to meet you, thank you. And I'm just an off-topic question here about the outbreak at the Veterans Home. I'm very glad to hear that that matter was recently closed.
Correct.
And it was a terrible loss of life and, a very high number of deaths, which I'm sure is personal to you and all of your staff. I had questions about whether there is a review underway to see what was happening, what attributed to the widespread nature of that outbreak, and what we've learned that would prevent it in the future.
Sure, absolutely. The New Hampshire Veterans Home has a board of managers that we report to, as well as reporting to the governor. And so, working with the governor's office and the board of managers, they're doing a complete review of the different items that they feel may be able to either contribute to or would have better mitigated the spread.
And is that a report that would come to us?
It will go to the governor's office.
So we're kind of in the process. We're bringing in the Department of Public Health. Obviously, we've got great cooperation with Commonwealth Brackett, her entire team, and our team, and So everyone, we're just making sure we put all hands on deck. I don't know if we have a timeline for it, but sooner the better, obviously.
And again, we did have the Department of Veterans Affairs come in and do a review, walkthrough, and just to try to, actually, in the very midst of it, had come in when they were providing the extra support to us, because as you know, the staff was impacted greatly as well.
And obviously the timing is, now that the outbreak is done, you can actually go in and discuss it.
We just had, obviously, unfortunate number of deaths in our long-term care facilities, far exceeding the percentages in other states, and so I'm glad there's a review on the line. Look forward to seeing it, so thank you very much.
Councilor Kenny.
Thank you. This particular facility is near and dear to my heart. It's in my district. But I want to give some context to this facility, and obviously the outbreak that occurred, and then some of the commentary that's been made more recently. We know that this population is between 85 and 90 years old. They're probably the most vulnerable population in the state of New Hampshire. These are veterans who served their country, served their communities, their families, who go there knowing that it's going to be most likely their last place.
It truly is.
And they want to be amongst other veterans because they have that experience. And as the governor and our elected officials who have been there over the years, we have one of the best soldiers' homes, state soldiers' home in the country. And we've always had that. It's really, truly unfortunate that we had, this outbreak. But you could say that about the West Georgetown Co-op Nursing Home. We had a huge outbreak up there. We had an outbreak in Carroll County. We had an outbreak in a drug facility in Effingham. We've had outbreaks all over the place. And so I just want to thank you for all the work that you do, and your staff in particular. We always say that the healthcare workers are our frontline heroes. It's heroes taking care of heroes in the soldiers' home. And so when I read about commentary in the paper, which I shared with everybody, it was the worst op-ed that I have ever read with regards to our soldiers' home. It was an attack on the governor. It was an attack on you. It was an attack on the adjutant general. It was an attack on the board of directors. It was an attack on our healthcare professionals who work up there on the front lines. New Hampshire's better than that. We should never go there. And it really disturbed me that the senior senator from Manchester would make the soldiers' home a political football. He did not come to me. He did not go to the state senator who was a veteran of that area. Did not go to the board of managers. Did not go to you. And so I just want to let you know that when people do stuff like this, these op-eds, that hurts the morale of the people who work up there. They start questioning themselves. They start questioning whether they're doing the right thing for families. Because we know when 3 veterans or 100 who die of COVID, you don't want them to go out that way, but God love them. Let's honor them. Let's not disgrace the staff up there or disgrace the whole system or the governor. That's just wrong. And as someone who's a retired veteran myself, I might end up there someday, and I would be comfortable with that, knowing that I have loving people who want to take care of veterans. The other thing, too, is that when you're in a long care facility, as a healthcare worker, you're told not to make a relationship with the people that you take care of, because you know ultimately they're going to die. And the thing is that you can't do that at the soldiers' home. You love their stories, you love their patriotism, you love the history, you automatically have a connection with that veteran. And so when I hear that the busiest place at that soldiers' home was chaplain's office, and it was because of all the grieving that was going on and that people had to be counseled, the public's not going to ever hear that. They're not going to know that. But I surely do. And I surely know you do, Commandant. I want to thank you for all the hard work that you do up there and your staff. And you said to them from Governor and Council that we appreciate all the workers up there and the great things that they do for our heroes. And when stuff like this gets written in the newspapers, guys like me are going to call it out. That was wrong. That was unbecoming of an elected official. to make our veterans a political football. And it's just wrong at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very well said. Councilor Steve.
I just want to add to that, I'm a proponent of Veterans Affairs. I spend a lot of time working with Navy SEALs, with PTSD. But thank you for fighting and advocating in your leadership during a very difficult time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job. Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay. Thank you, Commandant. Great to see you.
Good to see you.
Everyone our best.
Nice to meet you.
Hopefully we'll be able to come up soon.
I hope so.
We're getting through it. So with that, all in favor of item 57, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 57 is approved. I now ask for a motion on agenda item 58 from the New Hampshire Lottery Commission.
Second.
Any discussion?
I don't need to talk to the commissioner, but I did talk to him yesterday, and he said the invoice that's attached to this is actually for the wrong year, and I just wanted to make sure the amount hasn't changed in a year.
Well, the director is here. Let's bring him on up.
He was kind enough to send it to me, and thank you, it's the same amount.
Is this a typo?
Yeah, Dr. Six answer. Charlie McIntyre, Commission Director, Letter Director. Good to see you, Councilor. Yes, it was just the same amount, same dates, just a new version of it, sorry.
Great. I see you're wearing your DraftKings mask.
Yes, sir.
How do we make it out post Super Bowl?
Tom Brady should have shot 6.
Yeah.
He would have done it. No, we have a bunch of folks who won, and hopefully they'll stay and keep playing.
Great. That's great. Further discussion? Councilor Stevens.
Super Bowl, 7 million came in, is that correct?
7.1 million. Yes, Councilor.
Well done.
Yeah, no, right now we're number 3 per capita in the country in terms of revenue to the state in our first year. So,
amazing.
New York is copying us, which is kind of interesting.
New York is copying us.
Yes, they're calling it the Hampshire models.
Won't be the last.
No, it won't.
Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of items, bear with me, of item 58, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 58 is approved. Thank you. Good to see you, Charlotte. Moving on, I ask for a motion to agenda item 59 for the Department of Education.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Warmington. Do we have somebody from the Department of Education? Is the Commissioner with us?
So this is Frank Gablue,
Hey,
Commissioner of Education. I'm on the line.
Commissioner, how are you?
Commissioner.
I'm well, thank you.
Hi, Commissioner, this is Councilor Warmington. I have a question about this contract. It appears that in September, when you entered into this contract, you had anticipated that this vendor would train Department of Education staff to do the progress monitoring, and that now you are contracting with the company to actually do the monitoring instead of training our staff. Is that correct? You indicated in here this is due to staff reductions.
Yes, so that is correct.
And so you're replacing the services of our state employees with a contractor?
So what we're doing is trying to keep up with the contract by allowing this vendor to meet the federal reporting requirements for these CSI schools. And we have had some turnover at the department as a result of the pandemic, and we have not yet been able to backfill some of those positions, although we are actively recruiting for them. And in the meantime, we want to make sure that we meet our federal requirements relative to these CSI schools.
And so we're going to have to then incur the cost of training our staff in the future because we don't have the staff right now.
Exactly. So what we'll do is when we get into the next round of CSI school identification, we will again, so historically we've always used vendors to basically do this work. And so this was our plan to assimilate that work back into the department so we did not have to contract for it. And so we were moving down that pathway, and as a result of the disruption, both in our schools as well as in our staff, because of the pandemic, we were not able to get the people trained to be able to execute that work, but we do anticipate going forward that we will draw that activity back into the department because we think it's important for us to have hands-on with these schools.
Thank you.
Further discussion on this item? Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Hearing none, no further discussion. All in favor of item 59, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None of the opposition. Item 59 is approved. And now what's for motion to adopt agenda item 60 through 69 from the Department of Safety. Any discussion? Councilor Warmington, I think the Commissioner is here with us. Morning, Commissioner. How are you?
Good morning, Governor and Honorable Council, Robert Quinn, Commissioner of Safety. Good morning.
Yeah, this is for item number 64. We talked, it's a very, very small item. But this is a rent. You rent a space, and it is rent for the year 2016. And when your staff look at close the books in 2018, actually called this company and said, we think you have missing invoices. And they said, no, 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 we're all set. And so you close the books and move forward. And now, 4.5 years later, they're billing for services provided or rent for the year 2016. So we're well past the statute of limitations. And I'm just wondering, how long out would you take? I mean, obviously we had the space, and so it was a proper expense at the time. But when if someone doesn't bill you and then you nudge them and ask them to bill you and they still don't bill you, and then 4.5 years later come back and bill you, just how long out would you consider it appropriate to pay that?
Well, it's a good catch, Counselor. And again, we still continue to rent this space. We reached out to them to check and see if there were any invoices. What we found was they misapplied payments from EET and applied it as if it was paid to us. So when they asked for the dollars, we had an internal conversation, and we are still doing business with them. We got the service, so we figured where the cost was, under $2,700 would pay. But we had never experienced, I don't want to speak for Director Lavoie, but I think this is a unique instance. So I don't know if I knew prior to this if there was an exact date, but we made a decision to pay it only because we got the service. We're continuing to do business with them, but you're absolutely correct. It was their mistake, so we felt it was the right thing to do to pay it. And we rent that space, Counselor. It's a studio that we use to record for training for the fire service, and we still use it today. So I don't have an answer to the exact date, at what point can we not pay the bill, but we just thought it was the right thing to do based on, we did rent it, and even though we reached out, we were told that we didn't owe money, but we're working internally to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Further discussion on any of these items? Thank you.
Thank you.
So here we go for the discussion. All in favor of items 60 through 69, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The items are all approved. I now ask for a motion to adopt agenda item 70 from the Department of Justice. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 70 is approved. And now I'd ask for a motion to adopt agenda items 71 through 74 from our Department of Administrative Services. Any discussion? Commissioner, I'm just noticing, is that technically an Argyle mask you're wearing?
It is.
It is. That's qualified? I expect that less, of course, from you.
Are you jealous a little bit?
I'm jealous in that I can't pull Argyle off as well as you. I don't even think Taylor Caswell can pull Argyle off as well as you can.
They're hard to believe.
So do I. Never has this state seen such a marriage of Argyle and duck boots.
It's a great thing.
It's a great skill. Okay, seeing no more discussion on any of these items, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The items are approved. We have addressed the table items, and just to acknowledge, I know the council received an immense amount of information. I think we tried to give you a lot of information, most of which had been already presented to the previous council as part of the informational items we go over. And I don't know if you have any questions on that or anything about that, but I know it was a lot, so even if it takes a little time to go through that, and you have questions either today or down the road, obviously we'd be happy to answer any of them. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else to come before the council, we thank everyone for joining us today. We will be back in, I think, 2 weeks. Right? We'll be back in 2 weeks. And, if everyone gets a chance, try to wish Councilor Really well.